Hey everyone, welcome back to the Maximum Human Potential YouTube channel. Today's topic is going to be why you're not getting bigger. Now, anyone that's been around gyms a lot knows that there's not many people that you see who are gaining appreciable amounts of muscle mass year to year, month to month, week to, over a long period of time. So pretty much most people will look exactly the same every single year. So they're almost just maintaining. Now, one of the biggest reasons is that people aren't actually aware of what the drivers of muscle growth are and what actually matters in progressing the amount of lean muscle tissue you have on your body. Now, one of my favorite tools for actually quantifying this process is getting a DEXA scan, so a dual X-ray absorptiometry scan. And this is the gold standard in body composition, so it gives you a readout of exactly how much lean tissue you have, your fat mass, visceral fat, bone density. There's a ton of great information from it. And by taking them over a period of time, you can actually see how your body fat and your actual lean muscle mass are progressing. Now, strongman is an interesting sport because it's a performance sport with many components, but in order to be a top heavyweight especially, but to succeed in any weight class, you need to effectively fill out your weight, your muscle mass for that weight class. So, for example, if you look at the under 90 world champion who I work with, Naru Ahipiane, so he's 100 kilos with abs, basically in the off season. So drops a significant amount of weight to compete in the under 90 kilo class, and he's effectively filled out his muscle mass for his weight class, which is one of the reasons that he's world champion. There's probably only a few more kilos he can gain. We'll probably get a DEXA this year, and we'll actually quantify exactly how much more muscle he can fit in the under 90 kilo weight class. This should really be the goal of any strength athlete, is to completely fill out their weight class with lean muscle tissue over time. Now, and anyone that wants to gain lean muscle mass can learn from the process it takes these athletes to attain that amount of size. So what does it take? Well, the biggest determinant is progressive overload. Now, these days it's pretty, a lot of people, especially in the evidence-based community, they love to talk about volume, frequency. A lot of people love to talk about intensity techniques, reps and reserve. At the end of the day, the major determining factor is progressing the weight you can do for reps over time. So what does that mean? So it means using a standardized form, so you're not reducing the range of motion over time. There's some kind of standardization to the form. So for example, if you're doing a bicep curl, we want and then you start doing cheat reps the next week and increase the weight, but the actual contractile force of your muscle hasn't increased. You just modify the form, or you're bench pressing and you go to half reps or lift your ass off the bench in order to get your poundages up. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a fairly standardized form, and there's definitely a time and a place for cheating, but you need to have some kind of standardization of your technique in order to progress these numbers and make sure they're actually on the right track. Now, how much strength do you actually need to create a need for new tissue growth? Well, one of my mentors, Charles Poliquin, used to talk about how if you get 10 pounds on a lift, you roughly get 1 pound of muscle tissue. So in the metric system, if you roughly put 10 kilograms on a lift for reps, so like a 6 rep max, so if you go from bench pressing 100 kilos to 6 reps, and then you bench press 110 kilos for 6 reps, most likely you've put about half a pound. In that case, so that's 20 pounds, so it'd be about roughly a kilogram of muscle tissue on your pressing muscles. And this actually played out quite nicely in some DEXA scans I've seen. So there was a training cycle earlier this year. Not many of my lifts actually progressed, but my deadlift went up significantly. So I went from pulling around 300, and then I did 300 kilos on an axle bar, which is my weakest variation on deficit, which if I peaked out at the time, I should have been capable of about a 330 deadlift. So it was roughly this 30 kilogram gain on my deadlift, and there was an extra 3 kilograms of muscle on my trunk. So it worked out perfectly. So I'll use an example. Let's say we've got an advanced athlete. You can, note here, I'll go off 1 rep maxes. I'll explain why in a second, even though we do have to have that rep component, but we'll get back to that. So let's say someone can do 150 kilo strict press, 270 kilo squat, a 300 kilo deadlift, and they can chin up 20 kilos for 6 reps. So what you want to do is get a DEXA scan, see where your muscle mass is at, see where your body fat's at, and your body fat could determine the dietary changes that you need. So if you're above 20%, it could be beneficial to actually pull that back and resensitize your body to increase insulin sensitivity, get yourself a bit healthier before you're actually ready to push for more lean tissue. So it really depends, and that's where a good coach comes in. They can, let's have a look at your body composition. Are you actually too fat to effectively gain muscle? That's definitely something that can happen, and that's a problem I've run into on more than one occasion. So get a DEXA scan, see exactly where your lean mass is. A lot of people get brought back to earth with this, so they get a real shock about what their actual muscle mass is. I've had people come to me who want to compete as a heavyweight, and I look at their muscle mass, and in actual fact, if they lost all their body fat down to a healthy range, they would actually now be competing in the under 80 kilo class. So not many people actually deserve or have earned the right to actually compete in the weight class they think they do. They just eat way too fucking much, to put it bluntly. Anyway, so we've assessed lean mass, body fat. There's also bone, a lot of valuable stuff from the DEXA scan. Visceral fat's high, that might require a bit more of a stricter cut, and we'll put lean mass gain on the back burner and prioritize health first. So it really depends. Sometimes you have to take a few steps back to take a giant leap forward. But anyway, let's assume everything comes back great. You're in a healthy body fat range. You know where your lean mass is now. Now you want to progress it to a large degree. We want to put on around 8 kilos of lean mass. What do? So let's go back to this example. So just to recap, 150 strict press, this is just an imaginary client, okay? 270 squat, 300 deadlift, 20 kilo for 6 on pull-ups, okay? Because pull-ups, we might not test at max, so we're just going to work with reps just to make it a bit more user-friendly. Now, what this person does, they train for an entire year. We work at their strict press up to 160, their squat up to 300, so they put 30 kilos on the squat, 330 deadlift, and now they're pull-upping 30 kilos for 6 reps. So this is over a year. Now, that's 80 kilos across those 4 lifts. We should now have around 8 kilos of lean tissue. Now, this will vary to person, because obviously, if you improve your technique, you might be able to lift more weight, which is more of a neural adaptation, but the actual contractile force of your muscle hasn't had to increase. So that's something to bear in mind. But this is just a good general rule, so you can estimate, okay, I want to be this weight lean. What strength level is what I actually require to have that amount of tissue before I cut down to achieve that body composition goal? So yeah, really, so basically, yeah, what you're doing, you're picking your favorite pressing exercise, or maybe your least favorite. Something's going to push you. You're picking a squat variation. You're picking a back variation, either a row or a pull-up, and you're picking a deadlift variation or some kind of posterior chain movement, and you want to progress those as far as you can, add as much weight to your 1 rep max as you can, and then you retest, and you should have gained some significant amount of muscle. Now, so we have to increase our strength for reps. How does that work with strength training? Well, I have actually found that increasing your 1 rep max will actually still increase your lean tissue, so long as you used volumized training methods for the majority of your training. So for people in lighter weight classes, I'll quite often use like a little bit more neural work, especially if they've maxed out their tissue. But for heavyweight competitors, you're constantly trying to accrue new muscle mass, especially if you're not trying to prioritize your performance now, trying to prioritize your performance down the track. So for my own personal goals, I want to be a top heavyweight one day. So I'm actually sacrificing some maximal strength now for increased lean tissue, which will help me down the road. So for example, on deadlifts, my next training cycle, what I'm doing at the moment rather, is I've got 260 kilos and I'm working on building up to a 6x6. So last cycle I did 5 sets of 4 at 260 kilos. Just missed that last set. So what I'll do is I'll back off. I'm going to start this new block next week. We'll go 260 kilos for 6x3 speed week, and then 260 kilos for 6x4, which will be a small PD, and then we'll have another week off, and then I'll try 260 kilos for 6x5. I may or may not achieve that, but I will likely get a volume progression. And then I'll probably test a rough max before my next competition, just to kind of gauge where I'm at. But it's not going to be fully peaked, so it's actually not going to be fully, fully demonstrate where I'm actually at in terms of 1 rep max, because that would require like an 8-week peaking block to actually get me used to pulling in that kind of mid 300 range, which I think I'm capable of doing. So basically I'll just stick with that plan, and then after this comp in November, I'll back off, restart the plan, and slowly work up to that 6x6. At which point I may do a peaking plan. So that's just one example. So I'm attacking my deadlift with quite a bit of volume, not doing as many peaking phases, because a peaking phase is where I'm likely not going to be putting on a heap of muscle tissue, especially when I'm peaking towards 1 rep max. But this is what you can work in with strongman comps. If you've got a comp coming up with a deadlift for reps, it's a perfect chance to really accrue some quality lean tissue and push those reps and push that weight. Anyway, so just a quick video. So what I want everyone to start doing, get those DEXA scans, and then progressive lifts, and then I want you to come back, comment on this video, or message me and tell me about what kind of correlation you had with the strength you gained for reps versus lean tissue. So let's work together, get a bit more knowledge around what actually drives muscle mass growth, and stop focusing on this, on the extraneous stuff that doesn't work, that doesn't matter, okay? At the end of the day, muscle grows from mechanical tension primarily, combined with volume to multiply the mechanical tension stimulus, and then combined with repetitions to increase that metabolic stress. But the overall determining factor is actually just, do you get stronger? Are you able to do more reps and more weight? And the more reps and more weight, the better. So that's how you grow. See you next time.